Well, if you're planning to fly to the U.S. this summer, you might notice fewer flight options.
Visitors are even being told by their home countries to take their vacations and money elsewhere.
$21 billion gone. Why the world is skipping America. America's balance sheet just took a $21 billion hit. In March 2025 alone, foreign arrivals dropped by 14%, a nosedive big enough to wipe out an entire year of tourism exports. Walk through JFK or LAX today and the silence is deafening. The hum of luggage wheels echoes off empty terminals. In just 12 months, 10 international airlines have pulled out of U.S. routes, erasing flight corridors that once funneled millions into hotel lobbies, tour buses, and café tills. Every single percentage point drop in foreign tourism bleeds an estimated $1.8 billion from the economy, triggering layoffs in restaurants, rideshares, theme parks, and beyond. And this isn't a blip. This is a systemic unraveling. By the end of this report, you'll understand why even aviation giants like Qatar Airways, Lufthansa, and Singapore Airlines have quietly scrubbed U.S. destinations from their booking maps. The culprit? A punishing trifecta. High tariffs, cumbersome border red tape, and a growing perception that the U.S. no longer feels safe or welcoming. This isn't turbulence. It's a hard bank toward an industry-wide stall. The Atlantic Gap. The $21 billion hole widens the moment you look toward Europe. Play Airlines, the last Icelandic budget carrier still flying into the US, just called it quits. New York service ends September 1st, Boston on September 15th, and Baltimore/Washington by October 24th. That announcement lit the fuse. Within 30 days of Play's exit schedule, arrivals from Northwestern Europe collapsed by 17%, the first double-digit drop since the post-pandemic rebound. One major hotel chain told Bloomberg that U.S. bookings from Europe are already down 25% for summer 2025. Meanwhile, the same chain's global reservations are climbing elsewhere. Translation? Hotel beds are filling up in Toronto and Barcelona, while Vegas suites gather dust. Airline strategists admit the economics no longer work. U.S. Tariffs inflate spare part costs. Border inspections cause hours-long delays. One viral video of TSA chaos can vaporize demand faster than a snowstorm at O'Hare. For airlines like Play, it's brutal math. A 180-seat jet needs at least 85% occupancy just to break even on a 6-hour transatlantic flight. Miss that margin by even 5 rows, and the route bleeds red. With demand wobbling and costs climbing, Nordic accountants made the call: pull the plug and redeploy aircraft on shorter, tax-friendlier intra-Europe hops. The ripple effects hit hard at home. Every lost European visitor takes roughly $1,800 in local spending with them, money that would have gone to Ubers, Broadway tickets, and hotel breakfasts. Wall Street now warns of tourism contagion, spreading from coastal airports into America's economic heartland. Would you sit on a 10-hour flight only to stand in line for 2 more at immigration? The northern collapse. Look north, and the red flags are even bigger. After Washington's latest tariffs made global headlines in March, Canadian bookings to the U.S. nosedived, down more than 70% every month through September 2025, according to aviation data giant OAG. Airlines responded with a chainsaw. Between April and October, U.S.-bound carriers cut an astonishing 320,000 seats from Canadian routes, the equivalent of grounding 8 wide-body jets every single day. And those planes didn't sit idle, they rerouted. WestJet pumped capacity into Dublin and Edinburgh. Air Canada shifted focus to Spain and the Caribbean, chasing warmer margins and fewer bureaucratic headaches. Hotel CEOs echoed the fallout on earnings calls. Rooms that once filled with Maple Leaf passports now sit empty, even as properties abroad report record-high occupancy and rates. The consumer sentiment shift is just as brutal. A Longwoods International poll in May found 6 in 10 Canadians are less likely to vacation in the U.S. This year ***, citing long border delays, concerns over gun violence, and rising political hostility. Travelers over 50 are leading the retreat. Many say the U.S. just doesn't feel worth the trouble anymore. Instead, they're turning to Mexico's beaches or Japan's bullet trains, destinations that feel easier, safer, and more welcoming. Conclusion: America's welcome mat is wearing thin. What we're witnessing isn't a travel slump, it's a slow-motion retreat from a market once seen as the global tourism crown jewel. The US has long marketed itself as a consumer paradise. But tariffs, tension, and border gridlock are rewriting that story in real time. For international travelers and the airlines that carry them, the math no longer adds up, and the magic no longer feels real. The cost? Billions in lost exports. Tens of thousands of hospitality jobs. And an economic warning sign blinking red from coast to coast. Will Washington rethink its strategy before more carriers vanish from the sky? Or will America's open-door reputation become just another casualty of geopolitical hardball, ***? Let us know your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for our next deep dive into the forces reshaping the global economy. Each family choosing not to travel to the US drains about $1,800 from local American economies, and that loss doesn't stop there. Tourism experts warn that ripple effects are hitting supply chains hard, impacting everything from restaurant suppliers and rental car agencies to even the cast members of Broadway productions. It's a domino effect that starts with a canceled airline route and stretches far beyond the terminal. When a route disappears, TSA staff lose hours, food vendors shut early, and taxi lines all but vanish. The impact of global trade tensions is no longer abstract, it's seen in empty seats aboard a Porter turboprop that never leaves Toronto's waterfront. If you're in Toronto or Vancouver, what's stopping you from visiting the US this summer? Share your thoughts below. Meanwhile, Europe's biggest airlines are shifting their strategies. On April 29, 2025, Lufthansa CEO Carsten Spohr revealed the airline will cut planned U.S. capacity growth from 6% to just 3% for Q4, citing declining demand caused by Trump-era tariffs. But those planes aren't sitting idle. On April 1, 2025, Lufthansa quietly reallocated its Airbus A350-900s to Seoul and Shanghai, signaling a clear pivot toward Asia's thriving business travel markets. Other European carriers are following suit. A late May Financial Times report showed that Air France-KLM's transatlantic bookings for May and June dropped 2.4%, prompting them to shift Boeing 777s to Tokyo and Singapore. British Airways took more drastic measures, suspending its Gatwick and New York route from December 12, 2024, to March 25, 2025, due to engine shortages. Over 100 high-revenue holiday flights vanished, while crews were redirected to more profitable routes in Asia and the Middle East. Every transatlantic aircraft diverted deepens the revenue gap in the US. A single Frankfurt to Seoul switch is worth about $80,000 per day in ticket sales, money that once fueled American hotels, ride shares, and entertainment. Now it flows to Seoul's buzzing Gangnam cafes. Bernstein analysts estimate that if European carriers continue favoring Asia, the US could lose up to 1 million affluent travelers annually. That alone could wipe another $1.8 billion from local economies already facing job cuts. The story across the Pacific is even grimmer. On October 24, 2025, Jetstar will operate its final Sydney-Honolulu flight, ending a 19-year route and completing its full withdrawal from American skies. Hawaiian resorts once relied on nearly 270 Australians per flight. Now those 787s are being rerouted to Seoul and Bangkok, where airport fees are cheaper and no one complains about trade war-related surcharges at check-in. Jetstar isn't hiding its strategy. It's June 17, 2025. Schedule update includes 10 new weekly round trips between Sydney and Seoul, adding 100,000 seats annually, aimed directly at K-pop fans and duty-free shoppers. And the demand is exploding. According to Skyscanner Horizons 2025, flight searches from Australia to Seoul jumped 47% year-over-year, the fastest growth among all long-haul routes surveyed. So what happened to Hawaii's once unshakable Aloha appeal? Travel agents point to a two-sided price war, spiking jet fuel costs due to Washington's 50% copper tariffs and hotel surcharges tied to a stronger US dollar. Many families who used to splurge on Waikiki vacations now realize they can get 2 weeks in Busan or Phuket for the same cost, without the hassle of US visa queues. Singapore Airlines saw the same warning signs. In April 2025, it pulled its Singapore-Seattle Fifth Freedom route and axed the Manchester-Houston connection. The message was clear: the most lucrative passengers now fly east of the international dateline. Executives quietly point to rising U.S. ground costs as unsustainable, even while they shift to 350s to short, fuel-efficient hubs like Singapore or Ho Chi Minh City, where profits flow on half the fuel. The fallout in the U.S. is already showing. Honolulu International has warned concessionaires to expect a 12% revenue drop this winter. Customs officers at Seattle-Tacoma are being reassigned to Miami, where traffic from Latin America holds steady. In Los Angeles, Uber drivers report 40-minute waits between airport rides, double last summer's average. Tariffs and traveler unease are now actively reshaping the Pacific jet stream. Airlines follow margins, and right now, those margins lie in Asia's duty-free aisles, not LAX arrival halls. So, when planning your next long-haul escape, ask yourself, sushi train in Tokyo or taco truck in LA? Back home, the US airline map is shrinking just as fast as the tourists who used to fill it. JetBlue, hit by 3 consecutive quarters of losses, has already exited 15 cities and cancelled over 50 routes to preserve cash. That leaves large parts of the Southeast and Midwest with no blue-tail jets at all. United Airlines is trimming as well. On April 15, 2025, the carrier announced it would cut 4% of its domestic capacity starting in Q3 and retire 21 older jets. The freed-up aircraft will be redirected to high-margin international routes, think lie-flat seats to Paris and Sao Paulo, not Middle America hubs like Cleveland and Denver. Even smaller airports are on the chopping block. In May, the White House proposed slashing $38 million, over half the budget, from the Essential Air Service program, which helps subsidize rural flights from Montana to Mississippi. Airport directors warn that if Congress approves the cuts, dozens of small towns will lose their last commercial flights. Once mainline carriers pull out, regional partners may step in, but only if federal subsidies continue. Without that support, a short-hop ticket from Wolf Point, Montana to Billings could jump from $89 to $400 if the route survives at all. When the flights go, so do the jobs. TSA agents, rental car staff, diner waitresses all disappear. Local economies, already fragile, start bleeding from cuts they can't afford. The impact reaches even further. Agriculture, logistics, medical transport, and even college athletic recruiting are at risk. What starts as a spreadsheet tweak for airlines becomes a slow-burn crisis for entire communities. Governors talk tough about emergency funding, but most state budgets are already stretched thin by wildfires, Medicaid, and infrastructure repairs. The question remains: can any state patch a new safety net before small-town airports go dark for good? Governors talk tough about emergency funding, but most state budgets are already stretched thin by wildfires, Medicaid, and infrastructure repairs. The question remains: can any state patch a new safety net before small-town airports go dark for good? Your hometown might be next. What's your take? Share it in the comments, because the next fiscal vote on Capitol Hill could decide whether your local airport gets a boarding call or a padlock. From northern Europe's frozen skies to the wheat fields of the Midwest, the pattern holds: airlines pull out, gates go silent, and America's $21 billion tourism engine sputters just as peak season begins. Tariffs are driving up maintenance costs. Visa lines drag on. Safety concerns dominate headlines. 10 airlines have already removed their logos from U.S. departure boards, and more are likely to follow. Canada's jets now land in Dublin. Lufthansa's widebodies touch down in Seoul. Jetstar has rerouted to Bangkok. And in rural Montana, the runway lights may soon go dark. Unless Washington reverses course, easing tariffs, fixing immigration bottlenecks, and modernizing airport infrastructure, America's flight map will continue unraveling. But this crisis doesn't have to be a dead end. It can be a runway. Fast-tracked visas, frictionless terminals, and a 21st-century supply chain could put the U.S. back on the map as the world's top destination. So here's the million-dollar question: how long before the Stars and Stripes reclaim the #1 travel crown? 5 years? 10? Or is the window already closed? Drop your timeline below, because in this debate, your voice might be the missing boarding pass.